trick in making my love stick. What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to Film Critic and Common Man podcast. While other film podcasts might kidnap children, we only abduct ones who need a strong father figure in their lives. Each episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I am a film critic, and I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks. And I'm joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man who truly knows how terrible the inside of a Huntsville prison is like. Jake Miller, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, everyone.
Now this. You know this only from an academic perspective, not from no pun intended execution. But I mean, it's you for a little background. You went to school at Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas, and you know Correct. What an actual Huntsville prison is like, and it is not a place you want to be.
No. I during college I lived probably less than half a mile away from the Walls unit, which is where they do all the executions. And I had to drive past the Walls unit every day to get to campus. And Huntsville's an interesting place. Everyone who's done any time there, whether it be working as a prison guard, going to school, or being an inmate, everyone who has spent time in Huntsville has spent time in Huntsville.
Nobody's like, oh yes, my lovely time at Huntsville. Everybody's just like, well, I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I did 2 years in Huntsville.
Luckily, you had to pay to do it, actually. So that was the big
a lot of money. Yeah.
You had to pay to spend time in Huntsville. It's a good preamble to get us into today's film. We are talking about A Perfect World, a very underrated film we'll get into. Directed by Clint Eastwood, written by John Lee Hancock, starring Kevin Costner, Clint Eastwood himself, Laura Dern, TJ Lowther, and Bradley Whitford, co-starring Keith Sarbajka, Leo Burmeister, Linda Hart, the awesome Mary Alice, Wayne DeHart, Ray McKinnon, and Bruce McGill. Opened on November 24th, 1993, $31.1 million US on a $30 million budget, but made 104 international, $135.1 million on a $30 million budget. Did not really get any awards attention of any kind, really. A very kind of underseen film, especially in the scope of Costner and Eastwood, which we'll get into a little bit. Rotten Tomatoes, critics did like it, 79% from critics, 84% from audiences. This is one of those films we saw probably pretty closer to whenever it released than most people, I would imagine.
Yeah. I believe we did not see it in theaters.
Correct.
But as soon as it was out on VHS, that's about when we saw it.
Yes.
Yeah. I believe I've only watched it on VHS originally and then now downloading.
Yes.
Streaming or whatever you want to call it.
I'll do a quick plot summary of A Perfect World. This is a Texas-based story. This is based in 1963. A pair of convicts. That's right. I got it right over my shoulder right here too. So, in 1963, convicts Butch Haynes, which is Kevin Costner, and Terry Pugh escape from the state penitentiary in Huntsville. As they run away, they stumble into a house where Terry attempts to essentially rape the woman, but Butch comes in and stops that. They are also interrupted by their 8-year-old, the woman's 8-year-old son, Philip, played by TJ Lowther. They are Jehovah's Witnesses. They have 2 sisters. They decide in order to get out of there correctly, they need a hostage. So Butch intervenes, taking Philip, and all 3 go away. So they go, and then as they stop at a side like a corner store, Terry gets a little too friendly with the boy, he's a very violent guy anyway. Butch kills him in a field, and he runs off with Philip as they head on into Texas, further into Texas. In pursuit is Texas Ranger Red Garnett, played by Clint Eastwood himself, along with criminologist Sally Gerber, played by Laura Dern, and FBI Sheriff Trooper Bobby Lee, the most Texas name I could possibly think of, Bradley Whitford. They're going to, as they kind of pursue, this is right before the Kennedy assassination. This is, kind of the mixing of kind of old school it's kind of put it in the context of where Texas is. It's kind of like not the gunslinging sheriffs anymore, starting to get a little more modern kind of in between those two areas. So they're
kind of puberty of law enforcement.
Yes.
You will.
Good way to say that. So Butch and takes Philip as they stop at a store. Philip never gets to experience Halloween, so he steals a Casper mask as they run off. Philip being Butch being very nice to Philip along the way. Kind of a surrogate father figure, talks to him a little bit about the fact that his father is gone. As they go on, at the same time, Ranger Red is actually trying to atone for all this, because his initial recommendation to the judge was who sent Butch up to a juvenile place in the first place, because he thought his father was not going to work. They were about to go into New Mexico, but the roads aren't paved, so they kind of take a side on the highway, and they encounter a farmer, Mac, and his family. And they hang out with them for the day. Mac essentially starts abusing his son, and Butch kind of holds them all hostage. He's going to probably kill Mac, but then Philip intervenes and shoots Butch. They go in, they kind of run away into a field where the law enforcement all come together and try to end this peacefully. Red also is really to end it peacefully, as is Sally. Bobby Lee misinterprets essentially the situation and ends up shooting Butch once again, killing him. Despite Philip's protest, Philip is reunited with his mom. They fly off, and then Red and Sally kind of have to sit at the futility of everything. And the end. It's really sad, man. That ending is so sad. Like it's kind of,
it is.
There's no other way it could end, but at the same time, you're just dying for something else to happen, to be a little happier.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an escaped convict with a child hostage, like, I mean, how far are you gonna go? I mean, how long are you gonna make it?
We talked about this in the Silence of the Lambs episode. It's like, what's the end game here?
What's the end game?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and obviously, like Butch, his end game is we get to Alaska, and late in the movie, he kind of reveals that he's trying to reconnect with his dad.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of daddy issues.
Lots of daddy issues. Yes.
Yeah. But it's kind of like, man, you ain't gonna make it. You can't take an 8-year-old hostage and drive across, the continent.
Yeah.
And get away with it. I mean, they're gonna get you.
I mean, the surrogate father story it's not new in a movie, but it's a really interesting way this one is approached, because it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to take care of you, you're my child. It's almost like, because I'm not your father, I'm going to give you undue respect that you probably have never earned because you're an 8-year-old. He's essentially respecting him as an adult while treating him as a child.
Yes.
It's
a good combination there. I mean, that's kind of how I try to raise my kids is to respect them as an individual.
Yes.
Who can think and make decisions on their own, but at the same time saying, listen, I know better. So when I see you messing up, I'm going to correct you, but I'm also going to give you the respect to know that you are capable of making your own decisions. You know what I mean? So it's a strange dichotomy raising kids. I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you look at Philip's situation in this film, it's not like his mom is never presented as an evil woman. It's always, she's just a woman of her faith and convictions of being a Jehovah's Witness, and sticks by that faith. And because she sticks by that faith, it unfortunately stifles a lot of the normal kid experiences.
Yes.
And
Halloween, Christmas,
birthdays. Essentially, Butch just kind of gives free reign. Like, why did he get 4 RC colas and have to pee so bad? It's like, well, why? What other situation would he be allowed to have 4 RC colas? And a Casper mask, all these experiences. It's not necessarily he doesn't need the freedom. It's just the opportunity to have that freedom.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say, like, his mom's not a bad lady. She's not abusive. She's not neglectful.
Philip even admits it. He's like, she's a great mom. Yes.
Yeah. Especially at the end.
Yes.
When they're under the tree, and Butch is asking him, and he goes, she's a real good mama, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's when Butch goes, okay.
Yeah.
I need to.
Yep.
Okay. He tries to make some tweaks at the end, like take him to the carnival, let him ride a roller coaster.
It's all the candy he wants. Cotton candy.
Yeah. So she's not a bad mom.
No,
it's just the restrictions of the faith.
Yep.
He doesn't have the childhood that I think most American kids have.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
It's just a different type of upbringing. At the same time, like this surrogate father side of it, it's chasing a level of masculinity, but doing it with a level of tenderness that I don't think is like. The really cool thing about this movie, it's directed by Clint Eastwood, the most manly man ever. And Kevin Costner, who is also very manly man. And this is not afraid to do some more, sensitive type things.
Tender-hearted stuff.
I don't know about you. I had a huge smile on my face. So early in the movie, whenever Terry looks at the kid's wiener and calls it puny, and then the kid gets self-conscious about it and says, "Oh, it's puny." And Kevin and Butch goes, "Let me see." He's like, "Hell no, that's good size for a boy your age." And I was like, "Oh, that was nice." Like you didn't need to do that. Like it was just that's kind of sweet. Like just set the kid's mind at ease. It's no big deal. Like what's it gonna hurt? Like
yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, I think Butch recognizes that this is a young man that is lacking direction and confidence, and he's lacking everything that he himself lacked as a child, and he's trying to provide that confidence and
what does he say? I see we're a lot alike. We both had a dad who's a son of a bitch. It's like essentially like it's like,
who ain't worth a damn,
or ain't worth a damn. Is essentially he sees all the things that he recognizes in himself, and ironically, both shoot a man at 8 years old. Now, and you and I both recognize the reality of the situation. It's like, yes, he was killed by Bobby Lee at the end, but he wasn't walking away from that gunshot.
Oh no, I mean, there's no way. I mean, especially where it was. I mean, that's probably a kidney. Or, as I say, like there's some stomach.
That's going to do some. It's going to do some main damage. But the point being that it wasn't like. This is a good time to kind of segue into it. Lowther in general as Philip, as Phil. The whole time I was watching this, like I've watched a couple other movies on the heels of it. So I watched Sleepless in Seattle in between watching this movie and now. And the kid in that movie is 8 years old, and he is just a smart ass, he's loquacious. It's like the
precociousness,
not even like almost just like smart aleck. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, Philip in this movie is none of that. He is a quiet, chilled out kid. Like he's like, it's not necessarily, oh, is he stupid? It's like, no, he has the emotional intelligence of an 8-year-old. Like, it's
no, he's your average 8-year-old that is forced into this insane situation. He's scared. He wants his mom, but at the same time, he's connecting with this guy, this father figure.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's a bandit.
Yep.
You know,
it's fun.
He's having fun.
Yes, he is, absolutely.
He's on an adventure with this exciting guy that actually cares about him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really the first man that's ever gave a shit about him.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's just this new experience that it's like, well, why would I not be a part of this? And I think Lowther's phenomenal in this movie. Like, he could have gone so bad. I mean, his emotion, it's in check. It's not too over the top. His connection with Butch is obviously there. His desire for his mom, everything about it is pretty. It's one of the kid acting performances that do not get mentioned in the pantheon of kid acting performances. It's really, really good.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think this is one of the best child performances in a dramatic setting.
Absolutely.
That I can think of, because obviously we've done Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And while that kid in that movie did a great job, there's still a precociousness and innocence.
He's highly intelligent. He's independent on his own. Like it's hard for movies to get the idea of actual childhood correct, because essentially what they do, they write adults as children.
Yes. And absolutely.
And a guy like Hazley Joe Osment is a great example of that, because he's a highly intelligent kid. He delivers these lines really well. Like, he fits the bill really well. This is not what this movie calls for. This is an entirely different movie if you have a precocious little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can also think of other like child stars like Dakota Fanning, in
I Am Sam. Yeah. Or, Man on Fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cute little kid, but innocent, can't really fend for themselves and everything. Yeah, this puts a new spin on it, where really it's like this kid is just trying to get by.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in survival mode.
Yeah.
And he's handling that as an 8-year-old.
And it's like every time he gets into the car, he doesn't like do a running jump and slide on the hood. He puts his stomach up, and Kevin Costner has to drag him in. Like it's not smooth, it's not clean, but it's able to do that.
Yeah. And he drinks 4 RC colas.
Yeah, of course, as you would.
And of course, if you're a 8-year-old,
why would you not?
Witness kid, and you give me RC Cola, I'm going to drink 4 of them and have to pee super bad.
Exactly. Yeah. The other side of this, which I didn't grasp until this time, knowing that Clint Eastwood directed this, and I knew he was in it as the sheriff, obviously. And I'm watching it going like, oh, Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner are going to be in this, just like it's going to be back and forth. And I'm like, man, Eastwood's not in this much. It's very, very much a backseat role. In fact, I read that he just wanted to direct it. He was just going to direct it. He wasn't going to be in it. And Costner read the role, and he's like, well, why aren't you the sheriff? Like, shouldn't you be the sheriff? And Eastwood goes, well, I guess I should be the sheriff. Like, and
he's actually a captain in the Texas Rangers.
Oh, sorry. He was a sheriff. Chief.
Previously.
Correct. Yeah. But I mean, it's a role where you're like, oh, he's a tough-nosed, old school, hardened Texas Ranger. Like, seems like a Clint Eastwood thing to do. Like,
it is. It's like, who else are we gonna put in here?
Yeah, and then Laura Dern also being there. We talked about the kind of in between the analog and the digital of police work. Also the same thing with criminology, because she's obviously a profiler. And in 1963, everybody's like, what the hell is this? And it's a woman in 1963. This is, it's all coming together as
very
like,
much in a man's world.
Absolutely. And
almost like, exclusively
at
that point.
Now, and in the long term, the sheriff and both characters are really superfluous to the actual action.
Yeah,
like they don't
much.
I mean, they're chasing him, but it's more than anything, I think it gives the film a reason to be like, okay, the people chasing him are not evil. They're trying to do a job. And they also have to deal with the bureaucracy of the governor. And all in that
political pressures, and we need to get this case solved. I'm up for re-election.
Exactly. Yeah.
That still freaking exists.
I know you were a big fan. You loved the political machinations of your job.
Oh God. Yeah. It's like, just let me do my job.
Yeah.
But it's so often, someone's up for re-election or, looking for a promotion or something. They want a feather in their cap.
Trying to move up the ladder.
So, that shit definitely goes on.
Sure. Also, the more I watch it, the more I was like, okay, you could talk me into this being Kevin Costner's best performance. I mean,
I would agree.
It's on a very short list. It does everything it utilizes everything he does, especially his danger, while also being able to like feel at ease with his danger. Like his ability to seem threatening, especially in the series, the scenes with Terry, of like punching him in the nose and all that kind of stuff. You're like, I buy this. I buy all this. And whenever he's threatening the family at the end, I'm just like, he is gonna do this, and it is like, there's no. But at the same time, his relationship with the kid the whole time, you're just like, it's not the kind of performance you expect, but it's the perfect performance for him to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get more into this later, but there's there's a nature versus nurture argument to be made. Is he a good guy that became bad because of circumstances, or is he a bad guy that has figured out how to have some goodness or something? There's always that argument. I mean, it's, well, hell, I've got a brother-in-law that's been an outlaw,
Sure.
But, his sister, my wife, just fine. They came out of the same household. So
it's not like they were separated.
What is it?
Yeah.
But my wife had a mom.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law never had a dad. So you got to wonder, like, is he just a piece of shit, or
or is it the situation that kind of it's
hard to tell.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like twins and one is gay and one is straight. You're like, well, how do you explain that? It's like, there is no explanation for it. Sometimes don't be wrong, sometimes there are ways to, like, okay, well, obviously this situation, like, and that argument is made by Eastwood in this movie, is, well, if I kept him in that house with that dad, he would have gone and done terrible things. But sending him to the juvenile place is like, he can't justify that made it better. But he's just essentially, it's like, I just knew he couldn't be with that guy anymore. Right. Yeah. It was almost just like a salvage operation. Is like, man, this is a broke kid. Yeah. He doesn't have any good options. Let me just try to do what I can do to put him in the least
bad situation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And you can kind of look at like the cool thing Costner does, and you can kind of feel, you're like, this guy has a lot of repression.
Oh, yes.
That is just like, you want to talk about a guy who needs some therapy. Like, he's like, there's a lot going on. Like you said, he shot a guy in the whorehouse who probably messing with his mom.
His mom's a hooker. He grew up in
those type of things. Like,
brothel.
there's a lot going on. Who knows what happened in prison? All that kind of stuff from top to bottom. There's a lot of stuff he had to get to. And Costner does a really good job of, this is also, again, back in the time, this was not a time where you let your emotions go free. Mm-hmm. You repress, you keep it deep down. And essentially what happens is you see a guy hit his son and then you want to murder him. That's kind of the byproduct of that. Yes. Also, the really interesting thing about it is what Eastwood said about sending him to jail the first time. He said, I bought a steak for the judge, and that was that. Yep. It's just kind of the mechanisms of it, again, between the old West justice and more of a modern society. Yeah. Of, hey, handshake, right? And he goes to jail for 4 years.
Yeah. Hey, judge, came across a good deal on this T-bone. Hey, by the way, I was this kid, I think this is what we need to do. Like, I mean, that's obviously not supposed to go on. Hopefully it doesn't go on very much anymore. I
would like to think so, but you never know. Like, it's just a fascinating, like, it's really interesting as the more I think about it, the more caught in between the title of the movie, A Perfect World, and the idea being, in a perfect world, this situation can happen. And they're stuck in between all these different eras, the transitions. It goes a lot deeper than you think it should go.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I really enjoy the title, and I like the references to the term in a perfect world. Yeah. Because it's like, we wouldn't be here. Like, in a perfect world, there wouldn't need to be law enforcement at all.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, we don't live in a perfect world. I think that's ultimately the message in this, is like, there are so many conflicts, and like, there's no right way necessarily to do it. Something I like about, Clint Eastwood's character is he sent Butch to prison out of a concern for his welfare. He wanted the best for him. It wasn't out of malice.
Yeah.
No, he was honestly trying to do the right thing for this troubled kid.
Yes.
And
even justifies it. He's like, there was a priest that came out of that place. There were some good guys that came out of those. It's not like it was a sin.
Some people turned it around.
Some people turned it around.
Gainesville ain't that bad.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that justification, essentially, like, I did what I thought was best. And even looking back on it in hindsight, you can't be like, well, that you were obviously wrong. It's like, but was I? Like, I don't know if that would have been the case. Like, so
it's such a it really gets into, and I think Clint Eastwood does a good job of like conveying like this conflict that he has. Like, did I do the right thing? Did I not? I feel like he's almost trying to redeem himself by saving Butch. Yes. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Like, and at the end, that's just frustration after he gets shot. He's like, I didn't say to do anything. We were going to end this peacefully. And more than anything else, I kept thinking at the end, whenever they're talking about, oh, he has a pistol, it's how many stories you see of some tragic instance where, oh, the 911 operator conveyed the wrong information, or the wrong information was not passed. And then they go in with these preconceived notions and things go wrong.
Yeah. It's basically swatting.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a great example.
You call in on somebody's house and say, oh, the guy's crazy and holding everyone hostage. And then, you've got a SWAT situation. It's like, I didn't do shit. I guess I pissed off someone. But,
yeah, exactly.
So
really, there's a lot of layers to it, and he wants to end it peacefully, and that's kind of where he finally turns towards Sally, being like, okay, you also want to end this peacefully. You're not just in it for the sake of doing this. Where I'm coming from now. Yeah,
they both. I mean, once they realize the guy's going to take a shot, I mean, they're both mortified because they can see. I think it's almost like at that moment they can see a chance for redemption for all three of them.
Yes.
Clint Eastwood's character can justify the decision that he made a long time ago to, send him to juvie or prison. And Laura Dern's character, Sally, can justify her job,
her existence. Yeah.
Her raison d'etre.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Is understanding this guy and going, we don't have to kill him, probably.
Big year for Laura Dern, by the way, because this is the same year that Jurassic Park came out. So Jurassic Park came out 4 months previous to this. Big year for her to scream. She can really belt a scream there at the end. She can. It's really impressive stuff. I really like. There were some other smaller supporting performances. I love Ray McKinnon. Is one of those guys you see in everything. He's the driver of, not the driver. Oh, he is the driver of the pickup. That's pulling the.
Who gets booted?
I don't know if he gets booted, but he's the one who's driving the red pickup. But he's.
Yeah.
And then you've seen him. He's been in 1,000 things. He's been in Apollo 13 and stuff like that. Bradley Whitford being the just slimiest asshole, just as Bobby Lee. It's like, hey, Bradley, what do you have to do? It's like, I have to chew on a toothpick. I have to have a crew cut, and I have to be a dick. It's like, cool, got it. And then Mary Alice as Lottie, the grandmother. I remember Mary Alice from The Matrix. She's the Oracle.
Really?
She's the Oracle from The Matrix. But that's the one I always remember. And then got other people like Bruce McGill shows up for a half second and all these kind of things. But it's a well-rounded cast that nobody does too much.
Yeah. So who's the guy like from the governor's office whenever they like show, the truck and the Airstream and everything? And he's like special ordered by the governor, and then Clint Eastwood starts pulling off the banners and stuff. And he's like,
that's Bruce McGill. He's been in everything.
I know. He's just one of those guys you just see and you're like, oh, I remember that guy.
My cousin, listen to this real quick. My Cousin Vinny, Cliffhanger, Time Cop, Black Sheep, Courage Under Fire, Legend of Bagger Vance, Sum of All Fears, Matchstick Men, Cinderella Man, Runaway Jury, The Insider, Ali, Collateral. He was in Lincoln.
Yeah.
You see him in friggin' everything.
He's pretty prolific. Yeah,
he's very prolific.
Definitely.
And once you see, you're like, Bruce McGill, huh? It's like he was in Animal House. Once you see him, you're just like, oh, you just don't know his name.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, the guy who's in The Thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a guy. He was in The Deal. He was in that thing.
There is a documentary I highly suggest y'all check out if you have the chance. It's called The Guy Who's in The Thing, and it's all.
Really?
It's all character actors who people have, and it's essentially talking. They talk to these guys about, it's like, oh, these character actors and these little things, and about the struggles, the reality of the struggles of being an actor. And a lot of those guys are in that movie, including the guy who played Boggs in Shawshank Redemption.
Yes,
he is. He's featured heavily in that. Talking about the struggles they go through. And it's a really, really good documentary if you have the chance to check it out.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. All right, we are back. It is time for my favorite segment every week. It is Poll for a Dumbass. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. Today we are talking the director of this movie, the director and co-star, Mr. Clint Eastwood himself. Just his directing side of things, not actually all the acting ephemera, just sticking to his directing.
Okay.
He made his career starting out obviously as an actor. He got into directing pretty early, actually, 1971, a movie called Play Misty for Me. I'm going to give you credit for any of the Westerns he made that you have seen, but I don't have it necessarily on here. How about 1973? Have you seen the film High Plains Drifter?
Yes.
Okay, so you have seen High Plains Drifter. Okay, so I'll give you credit for that one because, you know, a lot of these Eastwood self-directed Westerns kind of blend together for me.
Yeah.
Like the other one, a couple of years later, he does a movie called Breezy in 1973, a movie called The Eiger Sanction in 1975. Then he does The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976.
Of course.
You have seen The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can. There's no way I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those I can't really differentiate what it is.
Right. Yeah. Well, I still do have a good friend that we used to hang out a lot. We went through the academy together, but he's a Clint Eastwood fanatic.
That's his guy.
That's his dude.
Okay.
And so go to his house, you know, cook up some burgers, have a couple beers. We're watching a Clint Eastwood movie.
Okay. So, nice. Well, those are the two big Westerns he had done to that point. He makes a movie in 1977 called The Gauntlet, 1980 Bronco Billy. These movies, Firefox and Honky Tonk Man in 1982. His directorial career outside of Westerns is really nothing. And then in 1983, he finally gets a box office hit. He makes the fourth Dirty Harry movie, Sudden Impact.
Yes.
That's the Go Ahead, Make My Day. I wasn't going to include that one, but and then the other Western he makes a movie called Tightrope in 1984. 1985, a movie Pale Rider.
Pale Rider. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Man, your buddy is doing you a lot of favors on this because I don't think I've ever seen Pale Rider.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I've seen a lot. But yeah. Hey, shout out to Tony.
There you go. Get that boy, Tony. So after Pale Rider's a big critical smash, so it kind of puts him back on the good path. Now, that being said, he still makes these kind of Clint Eastwood movies. 1986, Heartbreak Ridge.
Yes.
1988, he loves jazz. So in 1988, he makes a biopic about Charlie Bird Parker called Bird. He's not actually in it. He just directs it in 1988 with Forrest Whitaker. Big critical smash. 19, that one. I wasn't even going to include these. I'm just going through it. 1990, he has the double feature of The Rookie. I believe he's a cop with Charlie Sheen, and White Hunter Black Heart. I mean,
don't know that one.
Yeah, some of these movies are just kind of like, okay, like I don't really know what that's about. But then 1992 happens. Unforgiven.
Of course.
Man, it essentially takes,
I love Unforgiven.
It takes every single Western previously and it's like kind of shits on it. And kind of like, it's like, hey, how like the glamorization of violence and the impact of all these kind of things. I'm going to throw all that out the window and it's going to be gross.
Yeah. No, that's something I really like about Unforgiven is, I think it's a break from like good guys wear white cowboy hats and bad guys wear black cowboy hats. And, the good guys are always good and the bad guys are always bad. And the good guy always wins. It makes it more lifelike.
There aren't really good guys. There's no real good guy in Unforgiven.
And that's life, man.
That's the point. Yeah, it's like it's a lot of gray in that one. So he follows up Unforgiven with A Perfect World. A Perfect World is not a Western. I mean,
set in Texas, rural cops. So and like you mentioned, it's
transitional period.
It's set in that transitional period between Wild West Texas and modern Texas.
Yeah. So it's really interesting where A Perfect World fits, because he's hot off of Unforgiven, which is a massive success, wins a bunch of Oscars. He gets an Oscar. And then the next movie after that, another massive success, but in a totally different way. The Bridges of Madison County.
Yes.
I just watched The Bridges of Madison County for the first time. I'm sure I saw it a little bit when I was a kid, but with adult eyes, I watched it. It's exceptional. It's very good. And he's Clint Eastwood sensitive. It's a great performance by him. Excellent Meryl Streep movie all the way across. Really good movie. And everybody's mom's favorite movie.
Our grandmother really liked it.
Yes.
That's the last time I saw it. Yeah.
Really? Nice.
Yeah.
So following The Bridges of Madison County, he kind of goes into this level of book adaptations. He does a movie in 1997 called Absolute Power. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's something to do with the president kills his mistress, or a Secret Service agent kills a mistress of the president. It's kind of it's a silly movie.
I don't know that one.
Also in 1997, he does a movie called Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. It's like a Southern Gothic. And then in 1999, a movie called True Crime, where he's a journalist trying to get a guy off of death row. I wasn't going to include that one either. 2000, though, in 2000, a movie that would be made fun of just incessantly these days, but Space Cowboys.
Yes. James Garner.
Donald Sutherland, Eastwood, and Tommy Lee Jones. It's
ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous movie, but there's parts of it I really enjoy.
It's fun.
Tommy Lee Jones bench pressing with James Gardner helping him on top is a lot of fun. It's hot off the heels of Armageddon, and you're like, well, it's not as dumb as Armageddon, but it's almost as dumb as Armageddon.
See, the thing I liked about it, I think, was that these were a bunch of old, great actors.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to say, we're old. We're past our prime, but we can still do shit.
And four guys who are really known for their machismo in their action.
Yes.
When they're younger. Garner, Sutherland, Tommy Lee Jones, and Eastwood, all man's man. And then now they're old. And you're like, okay, well, still pretty good shape for who they are.
Yeah. But it kind of reminds me of Something's Gotta Break with
Something's Gotta Give.
Something's Gotta Give, yes.
With Jack Nicholson, yeah.
Yeah, with Jack Nicholson, where it's kind of an actor fitting into that role where they acknowledge, okay, I'm old. It's and I need to do old characters.
Why am I an old guy seducing young women? Isn't that ridiculous? And he goes, yeah, it's ridiculous. And the movie agrees it's ridiculous. Very self-aware. I agree.
Yes, self-aware. That's an excellent way to put it.
So he makes another book adaptation called Bloodwork in 2002. 2003 was another big breakthrough success. A movie I really liked at the time. I don't want to rewatch it because I remember liking it too much, and I'm afraid I won't like it as much. Mystic River.
Yes.
I really liked Mystic River at the time.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, if I watch it again, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like it as much.
Right.
I don't know why, but big success for him there. Not as big a success as the next year. Gets another Oscar nomination for Best Actor. He has done twice, by the way, after Unforgiven. Wins Best Picture, wins Best Director for $1 Million Baby.
Oh, yeah. Great movie. I really liked it.
I like it too. But it's so sad. I don't want to rewatch it.
It is.
It's a
one
tough
of those.
watch. Now, as far as late stage Clint goes, after he does $1 Million Baby, he kind of has the cachet to do what he wants to do. 2006, he takes a swing, and first he makes Flags of Their Fathers, which I assume you have seen.
Absolutely.
And and in my opinion, the vastly superior Letters from Iwo Jima.
Yes, I would agree with you as well.
I like Flags. I like Flags of Our Fathers.
They're both good.
Letters from Iwo Jima is just, it's not the kind of movie you would expect to see.
I think it's more difficult to connect to.
Obviously, yes.
Perhaps because the enemy is the main subject. But I've seen both. I remember Flags of Our Fathers, whenever that got released to DVD, I was still living at our parents' house, and they had bought like a nice TV and like surround sound and stuff, and I cranked that bitch up and just it was good.
Yeah, I agree. Some really interesting, like the things from Letters from Iwo Jima, for that exact reason you say. It's just like, man, it's weird to be the enemy. It's weird to be on that side of the enemy, but obviously it's really easy to. It's a lot easier to humanize the Japanese people than it is like, I'm not going to humanize a Nazi, and it's, you can see where the Japanese pride and all that kind of stuff comes from. And they present
that Bushido code
and they present it in a very respectable way. It's very surprising.
Yes.
It's kind of like, I always, and this is the same year too, I always think of Munich, like Steven Spielberg being a Jewish man, presenting that story and being as sympathetic and as he is to the Palestinian people, and that side of it is shocking to me. Is how, like, it's not really what you expect. But
I appreciate someone who's able to dive into dichotomy of things. That I guess, man, humans are gray. They're gray. So like I mentioned earlier, instead of the old cowboy movies where good guys wear white and ride a white horse, and the bad guys wear black and ride a black horse, like, it's very interesting when you actually delve into humanity, where it's like, well, they're not evil, but they're bad. Is this a good person doing bad things, a bad person doing good things, or a good person doing good things, or it's interesting.
And it's like think of like,
and it's honest.
You think of like John Wayne war movies and the black and white, like, greatest generation, we're doing the right thing, they're doing the wrong thing, and that is that. And it's like, it's obviously never that simple. So it's I appreciate anybody who's able to explore that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Clint Eastwood's career, obviously, he was behind or ahead of John Wayne, but like, look at Green Berets with John Wayne.
Yeah, the only positive, a positive Vietnam movie.
It was very much communist bad, Americans good, capitalism and democracy good, and we're gonna defeat them. That's it.
Yeah, there's no
something as complex as Vietnam is just reduced down to, we're good, they're bad. That's it.
And then you look at, like, Green Berets is a great example, because you look at that like in comparison to like Platoon, and just like, okay, it's like, which one?
Deer Hunter.
It's like, which one is more realistic?
Independence Day.
Exactly, all those type of things.
Or Born on the 4th of July, not Independence Day.
I was about to say, I was wondering where the Vietnam references were coming from Independence Day, but I got you.
No, they're the same thing in my defense. Independence Day and the 4th of July are the same thing.
Following
different movies.
following the pair of the Iwo Jima movies, 2008, he follows up with a movie called Changeling with Angelina Jolie. It's not bad. It's okay. She got an Oscar nomination for it. More known in 2008 for the directing and starring of the memeable "Get Off My Lawn" of Gran Torino.
Oh, very good movie.
A movie where he kind of the new persona that Clint Eastwood has taken on nowadays was built in Gran Torino. Like
yes,
the grunting, the like I said, "Get Off My Lawn," and
I'm a tired old man.
Exactly. It's like I have better things to do.
And I don't want to put up with y'all's shit anymore. I love Gran Torino.
He makes a run after following Gran Torino. He goes on a he goes on like a 7-movie run where he actually doesn't appear in any of the movies. The next one is the movie Invictus from 2009. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's okay. I wish I cared about rugby as much as the movie does, because I don't.
Yeah. I think that was my main deal. I mean, I think it was a very good movie, but it's like just not relatable. I mean,
I just don't.
I just don't
being
care about a Texas boy and rugby.
It just doesn't. Really,
I don't know what that is.
Good performances in that movie though. And then in 2010, he does a movie called Hereafter, a movie probably his most anonymous of his movies. And in 2011, J. Edgar.
Yes.
I have not seen J. Edgar. I have not heard great things.
Yes. Nah. No, I think there's just a lot more that could have been done with such a complex
I agree.
figure.
I agree.
I guess it felt undone or not developed enough.
There's a lot of avenues that could have made it interesting, and it never got interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 2014, looking at it now, it's hilarious. The double feature in 2014, earlier in 2014, he makes the musical adaptation Jersey Boys. I wasn't going to include that one. And then 2014, much different type of movie, American Sniper, which we have talked about before. And I talked about it before because it was a huge Oscar success. Also, it made an astonishing amount of money.
Yeah.
It made so much money. Big success. Then following that, 2016, a fine movie that I've never thought about after watching it, Sully.
Oh man. Yeah.
I liked it, but I've never thought about it ever since I've seen it.
Yeah. I don't know. Miracle on the Hudson. I mean, it's an incredible story. The fact that everyone lived is
really cool story. I agree.
Yeah.
He makes a movie called The 1517 to Paris about the the
soldiers
that's the one.
Off duty in Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing good about that movie. Then he comes back to movies. He stars in the movie he directs, The Mule, in 2018.
Yes.
I have not seen The Mule.
But it's pretty good.
Okay. I've heard
you ought to check it out. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept.
My big thing I've heard is that he engages in 2 threesomes in the movie as an 80-year-old man, as one is to do. The last one on this list we've talked about before, 2019's Richard Jewell.
Yes.
I
thought that was something I kind of like about. It seems like Clint Eastwood directed movies. He kind of tells these stories that have actually happened based on true stories that maybe didn't get enough attention. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, because the deal with Richard Jewell is like, ultimately, he was a hero, but he was completely demonized and he kind of never got redemption. Really.
Like he was kind of a buffoon, and he was one of those like wannabe cops, but he did save lives, and
absolutely he did his job and he did it well.
Yes,
and he suffered for it.
Yep. But yeah, that's the last one I have. I don't know if you've seen 2021's Cry Macho.
No.
Okay, I didn't want to include that one because
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, so
Cry
Macho. Jake, I thought you would never be able to top police comedies, but you have gone 17 for 17 on Clint Eastwood directorial films.
Between on a roll, baby.
Between Michael Pena police comedies and this one, man, I got you. You're looking solid. So
I'm in my wheelhouse.
You are in your wheelhouse. Thanks to Tony. You're a big fan of
Tony.
Helping you out along the way.
I don't think he knows how to use the internet, but thanks, Tony.
17 for 17. All right, buddy. It's about that time.
Yeah, I think you're right, man.
Okay.
Well, jump in this sedan, which I call the Hot Box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I don't answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia, sometimes it's not. What do you got?
All right. When was the last time you watched this movie before rewatching this? Obviously, for this segment.
So it's been on TV enough where I have all the movie channels, so every once in a while, if I see it on there, I'd be like, "Oh, Perfect World, let's see where this is." And usually, I don't stay on it very long, but it's just like, yeah. And then it's one of those movies you don't realize you have the memory of until you rewatch it. Like I remember very specific things. I remember Clint Eastwood turning around and telling them not to shoot, Laura Dern screaming, all those type there are little things. The fact the kid is not wearing pants for half the movie, I specifically remember.
He's in skivvies
the whole time.
Yeah, but dirty skivvies.
Those little things. I'm with you. Probably whenever we first watch it on DVD, we were on a vacation and we watched it.
Yeah.
I
believe that was VHS section.
VHS, probably 1994, 95.
Probably.
And we talked about it. There's some other movies like Milk Money. Trading Mom. There was another Kevin Costner movie I remember watching called The War.
That's what I was. It's like tree forts or something. It's like a neighbor dispute.
There's a tree forts. There's neighbor disputes, and then they're swimming in a water tower.
Yes.
And Kevin Costner dies in like a mine or something like that. And they're trying to build a house. I remember specifically watching these movies.
We watched a lot of movies on that trip.
We really did. Yeah. That's a good point.
I can think of like 5 that we watched.
And they're
on
all
that
kind
trip.
of the same type of like that.
Yeah.
Like, are they really successful movies? It's like, not really. They're kind of those in betweens, but I mean, like, yeah.
You know, mid 90s.
Yeah. You know how it is.
Okay. So obviously the Halloween costume is kind of, it's really kind of an important detail because this is when, Philip is allowed to kind of be a kid.
Yep.
And okay, I get to dress up for Halloween, something he hadn't been able to do. He gets to make believe or whatever.
Yeah.
So thinking back on it, on Halloween costumes, what is one that sticks out to you your favorite Halloween costume?
I remember when we were like, this is really prescient of where I am today. Is I'd watch a movie and I'd fall in love with it more than anybody else in the world would, and I'd really follow through with it. And that movie in particular was the Alec Baldwin starring superhero movie, The Shadow. And for Halloween one year, I dressed up as the Shadow. That's
old school.
I dressed up as the Shadow. And it was a cool thing. It was like I had this big black cape. I had a red sash around my mask.
Black hat.
I looked awesome as a kid. Like if that and I look back on it with such like memories. And then this is a while ago, I looked up like, The Shadow. And it's like massive box office disaster. It's like
horrible.
I loved it. I remember so much about that movie. Specifically, I remember he is trapped in a water tower and they try to drown him, and he there's a bullet hole in the water tower, and he goes up and puts his mouth around the bullet hole in order to breathe. It's the very specific thing to remember about it, and it is. I would love to watch it again, just going like, what is this? But
yeah,
as a kid, I loved it. Cool costume.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think for this era of this movie, early to mid 90s, do you think this is one of the best child performances? Perhaps
almost unequivocally, just because the reason it's not included in the list of pantheon of child performances is because it's so subtle. It's subtle and quiet, and it's not shouty. And even when he gets upset, he's not like screaming to the camera, having this big long soliloquy. He's just a kid, and it's never going to get. He's never going to get the credit he deserves.
He acts like an 8-year-old under extraordinary circumstances, which is usually, crying, being upset, and
and I think it's probably the reason he's not like a bigger star is because this is not the movie where they look at it and it's like, this kid's a dramatic chops, and it's like, no, this kid did everything this movie needed him to be.
He did exactly what he needed to do.
Yes.
So on that note, are there any other notable child performances that you can think of? Like, give me 3 top child actors.
I will Oscar geek out a little bit here for a second. In 1993, the Oscars awarded a movie called The Piano Best Actress to Holly Hunter and Best Supporting Actress to Anna Paquin, who was, I believe, 12 at the time. And her mother in the movie is mute, so she kind of has to act as her voice, essentially. And it's just an exceptionally complex performance for a kid that age. That's a really, really good one. So of all time, or just kid movies in general?
Yeah, any child actor performance
the go-to
you think was just like, dadgum, that little kid nailed it.
The go-to I always think of is Paper Moon from 1973. Tatum O'Neal, she famously won. She's the youngest Oscar winner ever. She's 9. I think she was 9. And she plays this little girl who's orphaned, and this con man takes her, and they kind of go across the country, kind of a surrogate father thing again. But she is like, she finds that perfect balance between, are you precocious or are you a kid? And it balances really well without being annoying. She's really, really, really good in that movie. And then it's hard to argue against Haley Joel Osment in Sixth Sense.
I agree.
It's like, you kind of look at that and you're like, man, it's tough to overlook. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, there's a reason he's got his flowers. I mean, like,
and really thinking about it, I think a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies have great child actor performances.
There was who was the Abigail Breslin Abigail Breslin in Signs.
Signs,
and then and then one of the Culkin kids is the other kid in Signs. Even Bruce Willis's son in Unbreakable. You think it's a good point. He's a good child director.
I think so. He's either good at picking them or directing them or something. But he's had quite a bit of success when it comes to that.
And then just want to say Henry Thomas from E.T., like the kid from E.T. Exceptional.
Definitely. So we're on episode 49.
We are.
And we've saved episode 50 for Shawshank Redemption.
Yes,
sir. A prison escape movie.
Yes.
We've talked about how cop movies make a good setting, war movies, war, just, you automatically have the conflict there.
Yep.
In terms of prison escape movies, what do you think the appeal is there as far as making that the setting?
Well, it's automatic tension. There's built-in tension as soon, like, I'm always like, whenever I see a movie about like a bank robbery or a crime, I always think, if I try to put myself in that situation, I can't imagine the reality of the adrenaline. Like, I cannot wrap my mind around how exciting and jacked up you would be for all that. And think of that in the same situation of prison. You're like, I have all this adrenaline. I am escape. I will not go back to prison. There's that. It's the mechanisms. It's always, and then generally prison escapes, they make it much more complex than just bad guy going to chase a good guy. They're always like, oh no, it's the guy escaping does have the shades of gray. And is he the good guy? Should we be rooting for his escape? Or are we rooting for somebody to catch them? Like, it's that back and forth. It's automatic conflict.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, in our criminal justice system, you normally think, well, he got convicted by a jury of his peers, and so that's where he needs to be. But
clear as could be,
but whenever you make it not cut and dry like that, it makes for an interesting setting to where you're rooting essentially for the bad guy. It's the ultimate anti-hero setting, I think.
It's a built-in anti-hero, and it's either a built-in anti-hero or it's automatically somebody who's like, oh, this guy deserves the justice he never got by the system. He has to subvert the system to get his justice. There's a lot of that, like, he escaped prison and he's going to uncover the truth. The Fugitive being a good example of that. And you don't even think of the Fugitive.
He's a one-armed man.
He's a one-armed man, exactly. So the automatic conflict is built in.
So talking about Texas, this entire movie is set in Texas, and there's a lot of references
to places we were. Apparently it ends in Happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
A town without a frown.
A town we have been through. Yeah.
Oh, plenty. Yeah. And then they mentioned Childress.
They mentioned Childress. Obviously Amarillo a lot.
Amarillo, Huntsville.
Yep.
It was just interesting to me to, kind of know how long a drive it is.
Yeah, you think of like 1960s Huntsville to Childress. It's probably 8 hours by 1960 standards.
Man, it had to be longer than that, because I think
there's no highways.
Was like 55.
And there's no highways probably. I mean, because
it'd take me about 9.5 hours when I went to school to get from Huntsville to Amarillo, and that's when it was 65 at night and 70 during the day.
And you're talking about a prisoner trying to escape back roads. So I mean,
right?
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
I agree.
Okay. One last thing. Did you notice any reference to another Kevin Costner movie?
Yes.
In this one.
Yes.
What is it?
At JFK. Was that the one you were talking about?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, JFK, they said the RV, this is going to run in the parade for President Kennedy to be here next week or in a couple days. I'm like, well, that's JFK's assassination, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is it the cornfield with Field of Dreams, or is that another one?
No, that's another one. You keep coming up with more.
Okay. No, what you got?
Specifically, whenever they go to the store called Friendly's.
Yes.
Okay, when they're walking up to the store, in the background on the side of a building, there's a mural painted on it that has a bull, and it says Bull Durham.
Really?
Bull Durham was 1988.
Yeah.
So they had, it was already a thing.
It's a reference. They did it on purpose. That's subtle. I like it.
Yeah. Whenever they walk into Friendly's, the store, yeah, he's like lighting up a smoke, and behind him, it's Bull Durham.
I always like when movies do that. They did that in Fight Club too. At one point, they walk out of a restaurant and it says 7 years in Tibet on the marquee. And then on another one, it says Wings of the Dove, which Helena Bonham Carter was in. And then Primal Fear or People vs. Larry Flynn is somewhere else. Like specifically Three's three actors. I love those little references like that, just to like. I love when they pepper that stuff in.
Yeah, I do too. And I didn't think about the other two that you brought up.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, Ben, you know what? I think it's time for you to go home to your mama and fly away with a helicopter.
Go home to my mom. I'm cool with that. Wow. What do you think about that old school helicopter? It's like very.
I like it.
The bubbles. I like it too.
Yeah. Have you ever ridden in a helicopter?
I have, with you.
Oh yeah, in Brazil.
Yeah, we were in Brazil. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only. It's the only time I ever had.
That's my only time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go, Jake, what is your film rating of A Perfect World?
Absolutely outstanding.
I
remember liking it even as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably the last time I watched it, I was probably like 16, 17 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of had this fear of like, oh, that's a good movie, but I'm afraid if I watch it, I'm going to realize it's dumb.
Yeah.
And we did a whole month of that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But no, this has stood the test of time. Absolutely. I enjoy it more now. And I recommend it.
I agree.
Great performances, great story, well directed. I have nothing bad to say about it.
I agree completely. It's probably one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated Clint Eastwood movie. Exceptionally well done. I thought I was the same boat. I was thinking, I'm going to come into this, it's not going to be good. And I watched it. I'm like, nope, it's great. Really
outstanding. Yeah. And I think we had talked off air and I think you had said, I forgot how good this movie was.
Yeah.
I said,
yeah. I
feel the same way.
As I'm going,
I was like,
all my fears were alleviated about 30 minutes in. I'm like, okay. This is a good movie. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. That's just about this for this episode of Film Critic of the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. A little programming note just before we get going. We have somehow made it through 49 episodes. Somehow still doing this. And we're going to do it at least one more time. We got number 50 coming.
We at least got one more.
We at least got one more in us. We're going to be doing the Shawshank Redemption for number 50.
Heck yeah.
We're going to talk about a lot of stuff outside of the movie and then about the podcast and all that fun stuff we've had. So it'll be a really fun one next week. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, on Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. You can follow my other writings on the film experience and cinema scholars. You can also find me on other pods. I'm the Daily Dose of Podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you? I assume in a silver bullet RV running off into the woods.
I'll probably be in a cornfield asleep.
That seemed very pleasant at the time. I was like, worst place to take a nap. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter, Critic Comment Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We'll catch you guys next time for big number 50. Thank you guys so very much for joining us, as always.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Adios.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?